Hey team, welcome back to another great episode of the Intentional Agribusiness Leader Podcast. This is your host, Mark Jewell, coming at you solo today. And I'm diving into finally, after 150 plus episodes of this podcast, into what does it mean to be intentional. If you've listened to the show at all, then you have heard me ask at the onset of every single episode, what does it mean for you to be intentional? And every guest gets to answer that. Couple times I've started to dive into my answer a little bit, but I've never really gone in depth with what I believe after all these conversations and all of the research and all of the reading and all of the testing that I've gone through to determine what does it mean to be intentional from a leadership perspective. I've never really gone in depth. In today's episode, that's where I'm going. I'm going to give you guys my definition of what it means for me to be intentional. I'm going to share a couple stories along the way. So buckle up your seatbelts, get ready for a little masterclass on this, because my hope is that you are able to take this and implement this as a framework into your day-to-day life so that you can lead your life with greater intention. The mission of this show is to get the conversation about intentional leadership in the earbuds and truck speakers of people like you. And that's what today is all about, is giving you the actual framework that you can implement into your day-to-day so that you can actually be, not just talk about it, not just hear about it, not just listen to it, but to actually implement this into your life. So let's get started. I'm going to give you a 3D framework. Just to give your brain something to latch onto, something that you can remember. There are 3 parts of my definition to what it means to be intentional, and each one of them is going to start with the letter D. Okay. First up to bat, we have the word deliberate. You've heard this a lot on the show. In fact, I think it may be the most common answer that people have given to what does it mean for them to be intentional. The word deliberate has come up a lot. Okay. Deliberate. What does this mean? Well, it means that you meant to. If you did it deliberately, it means that you meant to. If you're trying to be deliberate, it means that you mean to. Deliberate just simply means that it's something that you really want to make happen. It's something that you're actually thinking about ahead of time and moving into, like, you're doing it on purpose, right? We're actually doing it on purpose. Here's what I see a lot of us do, guys. I mean, we get so caught up in the day-to-day, the grind, the hustle, the moving from one thing to the next, the waking up, and you've got input coming into your phone device, which you have probably used as your alarm. And we tend to often roll right into emails and social media and things like that, and text messages that can be very distracting. And maybe we're rolling into parenting straight out of the gate. I know that's one of the first things I had to do today. Was I got up and did give myself a little bit of time to have a little morning study, a little bit of coffee before I got the kids up and got them out of the house this morning. But then it's right into the kids, and now that takes until about 7:15, finally get them out the door and on their way to school and everything. But and then I got to somehow transition into the next thing, right? And just like it doesn't necessarily create an amazing flow for the start of the day if you haven't done it intentionally, right? If you haven't been deliberate. So what happens when we have all these things attacking our minds and clawing at our time and things that are going on early in the day, it makes it very challenging to be more on purpose, to be more deliberate with that which we are trying to create. Okay. But that's what's required of intentional leaders. How do we be more deliberate? Let's move on throughout the rest of the day. There's more demands on your time. You may even have a schedule, right? If you're like me, I've got my day pretty well planned out. I've got my day pretty well calendared. I know what's coming up. I know what I want to do. And then there are things that happen throughout the day that derail what I've got planned, right? But intentional leaders are very protective of their time and the things that they allow onto their calendar and the things that they do. Why? Because they're deliberately trying to curate a certain type of experience for themselves and for others. They're trying to create a world where they can be focused and not rushed, where they can be hands-on, but not always hands-in, where they can be very functional and very useful, right? But not always have to be managing every single detail. A deliberate leader is somebody who's really trying to curate a specific mission. They know what they're out to create. They know what they're trying to do. They know what they're trying to get, and they know what they're trying to make in life. And, my friends, I'll be the first one to raise their hand and say, man, a lot of my life, I have failed miserably to be deliberate. I have failed in so many ways over the years to be deliberate, whether it was in my marriage, whether it was in my health, whether it was in my business. It doesn't really matter with my faith life, right? I mean, there have been times when I just have had no deliberate sense of what I was trying to create. I was not doing it on purpose, right? I was working around it. I was going through the motions. And this is where I see a lot of people going off the rails with a lot of things because of all of the stuff that I mentioned earlier, all the stuff that goes on throughout the course of the day that distracts you from being deliberate. What's happening is it's a lot of we just get into these routines as we go throughout the day where it becomes normalized to be distracted. It becomes normalized to be distraught in some cases and to be distressed in many cases. And we kind of get into a routine, a day to day. A lot of times people, I'll call them up, say, how you doing? It's like, oh man, I'm busy. I'm like, what? Busy doing what? Right? Can you actually tell me what you're busy with doing right now? Right? I want to stop hearing you tell me that you're busy, and I want to start hearing what you're excited about that you're creating right now. What are you deliberately doing? Like, hey, you know what? Right now, we are creating an epic new program that does this. We are in the middle of doing this. I'm trying to create a great new relationship with my wife. Whatever your thing is, whatever it is that you're deliberately trying to curate and create in your life, right? And then I want to hear like, and here's the things I'm doing with that right now. That would be much more deliberate to me, much more on purpose to me than somebody who just tells me, man, I'm busy. Well, when I'm busy, what that means is I'm stuck in the details, right? I'm just stuck in the grind. I'm stuck in the muck and the mire of the day to day. And I don't really have, like, I'm actually not clear on exactly what I'm doing in this moment. So anytime I hear somebody just tell me, man, I'm so busy, what I'm hearing is I'm hearing from someone who's not deliberately curating the moment that they're in right now, which means that on a scale from 0 to extremely deliberate, they're probably towards the bottom end of it. That may sound a little harsh, may not sound like nice words, it may not sound fair, but to be intentional requires that you be deliberate. To be an intentional leader, for people around you to someday describe you as such an intentional leader, that requires that you be deliberate, which means there are things that you're going to have to say no to, things that you get to say no to, by the way, and things you get to miss out on. My wife often talks about this. She's like, instead of it being the fear of missing out, what if we turned it into the joy of missing out? The joy of missing out on something means like, yeah, I didn't get to go to that thing. I didn't go on that trip. I didn't take that call. I didn't say yes to that project. I delegated that, or I ditched that thing, or I delayed it till later on. And I missed out on what was going on today. I didn't get to see what was happening in the news today. I denied myself seeing what's happening on Fox News and CNN. And I have joy in my life because I was able to focus on things that actually mattered, that I'm deliberately creating. Okay, let's move on to the next D, which is disciplined. Intentional leaders are disciplined. Nobody wants to hear the word discipline when it comes to this, but man, this is it. And I've struggled with this one so much over the years. In fact, this year, in the year 2025, I decided to make discipline my word of the year so that I could go deeper with this word, so that I could work on my intentionality through discipline. Because one of the things that we know is consistency is your credibility. And I'm the chief sinner of this one. Over the course of my career, I've lacked consistency in so many ways and shapes. And this year I've been really working hard to create more consistency, because I understand that a disciplined leader, and by the way, it doesn't mean you're a prude. It doesn't mean that you don't have any fun. It doesn't mean that you aren't even like relatable to people. It just means that you're someone who turns intentions into outcomes. You're not just someone who talks about doing something. You're not just someone who says things, right? But you actually walk the walk. You take the things that you're talking about and you're turning them into new realities. It's the showing up. It's the following through. It's the finishing well. Frankly, from a discipline perspective, it's not about disciplining others. It's about disciplining yourself. One of the fastest ways that we build trust in ourselves is by keeping our promises to ourselves. So for me, I'll just give you an example. Going into the year 2025, it's May 20th as I record this. And I've been really focused on discipline in my life, over the course of the last 5 months, just like things like if I say I'm going to get up early, I'm going to set the alarm and I'm going to get up early, even if I don't feel like it. Okay. Being disciplined enough to go do that. I happen to know, this is something I know about myself. I function better, my best ideas and my best administrative work, my best proposal work, my best follow-up work and communication comes out of my brain and out of my fingertips and out of my mouth between 6 a.m. and 11 a.m. Those are the best hours of the day for me to do things that make us the most money, that generate the best ideas, that it's where witty ideas and good inventions and do stuff like my brain and body work together very well to do those kind of things during that time of the day. If you take my wife, Christine, she works better in the second half of the day. So we're on different rhythms. And, historically I've tried to adapt myself to meet her rhythm, but it never worked. Okay. So I had to find the discipline to go back and do my thing in my way and discipline myself to be able to do that, to follow through and to follow up. Sometimes it's the discipline to say no. It's the discipline to say no. I've already talked about in this very episode that sometimes you got to say no because being deliberate will require that, but also being disciplined, right, requires that you have to do this. Now, but it was sometimes I think what a lot of people think is that to be disciplined means I have to miss out on things or that I can't have certain things or that it's too rigid. And I want you to think about it this way. Being disciplined doesn't necessarily mean rigidity. It doesn't mean like if you miss a day, like that you're not a disciplined person. Okay. It means that, yep, I made a mistake, but repent and change your ways and get up and try it again tomorrow. Do a better job with it tomorrow. It doesn't mean that that we're always screwing it up if we're not perfectly disciplined. It doesn't even mean that you have to do the same thing every single day. Right? It can be different things on different days. So we each have a different need for discipline, a different reason to be disciplined. Let me give you a visual as you think about it this way. When you think about a river flowing through its banks, right? It's going through the channel of the river. It's going from between one bank and the other bank. Often I picture the Missouri River because I lived very close to it when I used to live in Omaha, Nebraska. And the river is very functional. We can run barges up and down certain rivers. The Mississippi River, we can move grain up and down the Mississippi River. The Ohio River, we can move we move things up and down these rivers, these waterways. They're very useful. But if there's a big snow up north and then it melts very quickly in the spring and there's some rain to go along with it, all of a sudden we've got a flood, right? We've got the water flowing over its banks. Well, now it's dangerous. Now it's unuseful. We have to wait until the flood clears to move anything up and down the river again. It's now become unuseful. We can't do recreation on it. We can't use it for commerce. We can't move things up and down the river because it's no longer flowing through the banks. When the water has the discipline of flowing between its banks, it's useful. When it overflows its banks, it becomes unuseful. That's it. That's the difference between disciplined and undisciplined. And intentional leaders understand where their boundaries are, what the riverbanks of their life are, and they stay within that. That's it. They do their best to stay within that. Do they do it perfectly? No, but they do the best that they can. And then they try to model that and create an environment within which the people around them can also be disciplined. right? So disciplined leaders will often take a stand for something. And in many ways, they may be the unpopular leader sometimes. A lot of you have gone from maybe you were a great salesperson and now you're leading a sales team. You were peers with the other salespeople. Or maybe it's a division, a business unit. You were peers with people who you're now leading. And so now, instead of looking for things that you can get away with or ways that you can work the system, you are the system. And so you have to communicate that discipline and hold people accountable to it. Intentional leaders are people who hold others accountable to what they want. They know what they stand for. They know what they don't stand for. They know what they'll tolerate. They know what they don't tolerate. That all falls into this category of discipline. So our first two D's bring us 2/3 of the way through, right? They bring us 2/3 of the way through of what it means to be an intentional leader as it pertains to my definition after 150 plus interviews, after 2+ years, now 2.5 years studying intentional leadership, thinking about it on a day-to-day, pulling deep research with AI, reading the books, trying to understand like what do the most intentional leaders do? Number one, they're deliberate. They are deliberate. They mean to do it. They're doing it on purpose. Number two, they are disciplined. Intentional leaders are disciplined. And here's the third and final D. And this is probably the one that comes out of a little bit out of left field for a lot of people, because when you think about it from a professional context, we won't think about it in this way, but it is so important. There's a lot of words we could use here. There's other D words we could use here, but this is really important. It's the word divine. Intentional leaders, right, have a divine component. There's a divine component to how they show up. Why do I use the word divine? Why do you think I use the word divine? Here's the reason. If you're in a leadership position, if you're in a leadership role, my belief as an intentional leader, as somebody who's saying this deliberately, and somebody who is disciplined in this arena, okay, is I believe that you were uniquely created. You were uniquely created for the job that you're in, for the role that you're in, for the place that you're in, the company that you're working in, the people, the team that you're leading right now, the people that you want to lead, wherever you are in your leadership journey. Okay, you have been uniquely woven together. Okay, and I'm a spiritual person, so I'm not going to back off on sharing any of this in this episode. I am a spiritual person. I believe in God, right? I believe that Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior. And here's what I'm here to tell you is these guys, the Lord has put you together uniquely divine, like you've been divinely structured for the role that you're in right now. You are divinely structured for the world that you're living in today, and you have a unique and special mission, which is why like there's a part of you that knows, like you feel like there's just a reason for being here. There's something that you're up to, that you're supposed to be doing. So whatever the role is, whatever the leadership role is right now, maybe it's not perfect, maybe it's not the one that you wanted, maybe it's not where you would plan to go, but it's where you are right now. And so work where your feet are planted, because you are on a divine mission within the role that you're there today. You may be the most positive person that someone gets to interact with today. What you say, by the way, as a leader has far more value and far more impact than you're giving it credit for. So choose your words carefully. Intentional leaders have a divine mandate for the role that they're in. Okay, in Ephesians 2:10, it says, "For we are God's masterpiece. He created us new in Christ Jesus so that we can do the good things that he planned for us long ago." You are not in this role by mistake. You're not a copy. It is not a coincidence. You are crafted for this moment with intent. So the most intentional leader of all has created you to be an intentional leader in the role that you're in today. Your leadership has a divine design. Okay? And it was assigned before you ever showed up on this planet. And Jeremiah says, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. And before you were born, I consecrated you. I appointed you a prophet to the nations." Jeremiah 1:5. I love that verse. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I consecrated you. I appointed you a prophet to the nations. This is what this means. Your leadership identity precedes your earthly title. Okay, your leadership identity as a divine leader, as an intentional leader, to be an intentional leader means that you have a divine mandate to be in the role that you're in. And you had an appointment. You've been appointed in this role. sometimes I think about, people who don't like the roles that they're in for whatever reason, however they got there. There's lots of different reasons people end up in roles, right? But I often think about Joseph, right? Who, he was, the youngest of his brothers, and they didn't like him that much, and they sold him into slavery. And he ends up getting, ends up working in the uh, Potiphar's house, in Egypt, and he ends up running the house, right? So he just like he gets there, he gets sold into slavery. He's got every excuse to be mad about it. He can try to run away, he can try to hide from his duties, whatever, but he's there, and then he surrenders into the role, does the best he can with it, and ends up being in charge of the house. And then things go badly for him there after a certain amount of time because he's got integrity and values, and he won't submit, and so he ends up getting thrown in jail. He spends some time in jail, but even while he's in jail, he does the best he can to serve the people around him, which is eventually what gets him out of jail. And then because he had the ability to interpret dreams. If you don't, I'm summarizing a lot of this for the sake of time in the podcast here today. But then he ends up, because he had served well while he was in jail, he ends up getting to go and help the Pharaoh, and then the Pharaoh ends up appointing him to be the governor of all of Egypt, where he again serves well until he's actually able to bring his family, okay, to Egypt and save them. You may be in a role right now that you don't like. You may have a job, a boss who's a pain in the rear. I don't know. But here's what I'm here to tell you. From an intentional leadership perspective, you got a divine mandate to be in this role right now. You got a divine mandate, a reason for being in there. So get busy thinking about what it is. And if you don't know if you can't get the answer, if you can't discern what this answer is, that's fine. Just serve to the best of your ability in the role. Be the best version of you, the best you can be in your role right now. That's what makes intentional leaders so divinely appointed in their role. It's like there's just you are unique in your role. Nobody can copy it. There's literally no way to copy. There's no way to copy how you go about doing the job that you do. We have an assessment tool called Strength Scope that we give to our clients sometimes. And what it does is it shows us the parts of the brain that light up. It shows you like what are the well-worn neural pathways in your mind that get excited about the work. And we tend to want to do more of those things. Okay. The assessment has 24 possible areas that could be that are your strength areas, your energy giving, your batteries. And the assessment gives you 7 of those 24 that are like your most well-worn neural pathways that you get the most energy from. And when you're doing work, you tend to default to these things. And the likelihood that you would have the same 3, as someone else, like the same 3, the first 3 in the same order is like 1 in 10,000, right? And that's unique enough. But now if you go to like all 7, the likelihood that you would have the same 7 as somebody else, there's only about 5 other people on the entire planet that would even have the same 7 in the same order as you. Only 5 other people on the whole planet. Given the number of people on the planet, just using permutations, there's only 5 other people on the whole planet that would have the same 7 in the same order as you. If you were to extend that to 10, literally, it's like you're like 1 in a trillion. There's literally nobody in the universe that does work the way that you show up. So you have a divine appointment to do the work that you're doing right now, to show up and do it in the most intentional way possible, whether you're a people leader or not. We have Romans 12:6, it says we have different gifts according to the grace given to each of us. Okay, we have different gifts according to the grace given to each of us. We all have different gifts, different spiritual gifts, ways that we show up. Your divine design includes a unique gifting mix that nobody else has. And intentional leadership means operating in your lane of divine wiring, not someone else's shadow. So it means that you're showing up and you're doing this uniquely you, and nobody else does it this way. And it's so cool because you have such a unique thumbprint and fingerprint over the people in your world, over the people that you serve, regardless of the role that you're in today. And the last thing I want to just mention on this is It says in Psalm 139, verse 13 to 14, "For you created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made." Divine leaders understand they have a uniqueness about them. They have a uniqueness about them. They do things deliberately. They do things on purpose. They do things disciplined. There's a discipline with how they go about doing things. And then finally, they understand that there's just something unique about the way they show up. This whole podcast, if you go back and listen to all 150 or so episodes and go through, I mean, this is over 150 interviews that I've done to create this show over the last 2.5 years. There's not one that's the same. I ask the same question of everybody at the beginning of every episode. What does it mean for you to be intentional? Why? Because you've got your own unique definition of what it means for your intentional leadership that nobody can copy, that nobody can mimic. And that's why it's so interesting, and why so many people either message me or comment on LinkedIn posts or share with me offline sometimes. I love hearing the different things. I had one person who I interviewed recently who came on and said they listen to every episode of the show because they take something unique away from every single leader and then they implement it, right? They take one or two things and they try to find ways to incorporate that into their routine, their daily routine, even if it's something small, right? So I share that with you, my friend, because I just don't want you to discount the uniqueness, the divine, the divinity that is within you, the divine uniqueness that is you. And this is why the 3 Ds of leadership are so important. The three Ds of intentional leadership. Right? It's deliberate. You mean to. Okay. You mean to. It's disciplined. You give it structure. And it's divine. It means he meant to put you in this role that you're in today. So go about and serve the industry with that uniqueness that makes you that makes you such an intentional leader, divinely appointed at this time, in this moment, to be in this space. Thanks for being with me. Thanks for sticking with the show. Thanks for continuing to listen. If this has served you today, by all means, please share it on with somebody else. Share another episode with someone else. Invite somebody else to watch the show. The more people we have listening, the more we can bring the message of intentional leadership to agriculture, to agribusiness, and to your company, your people, your families, and your communities today. Thanks for being with me.